Building a house is a dream for so many people in the UK, but it's one that seldom comes true. It turns out the UK builds fewer one-off houses than most European countries, and the reasons for this are complex. Depending on who you listen to, it's either cultural or financial or the planning system stops them. I think all of those things play a role, but I've often wondered if the UK could increase the number of one-off homes by learning how it's done in other countries. So I've come to Portugal. I'm in Vale de Lobo, a tiny village near Mirandela, about 2 hours inland from Porto. This is wine and olive country, with small farms connected by narrow roads winding through rolling hills. I found this property on Airbnb. It's actually two houses designed and built together to work as a pair. They're called Casa and Casa do Lagar. The names roughly translate to home house and home of the olive press, and I have been given access to both. The owner, Nuno, told me that lar in Portuguese has a deeper meaning. It refers to a stone within the home where a fire is set. This is the symbolic heart of the house, and lagar means a workshop where olives or grapes are pressed to create two products that Portugal is famous for. When Nuno started this project back in 2014, the site contained two ruined agricultural buildings that were little more than crumbling stone walls. The design doesn't just pay lip service to the history, it literally incorporates the original walls into the new homes. This isn't some bland modern box dropped onto a green field. The design carefully stitches together new and old to create a wonderful home that fits its context. There is a lot to discuss here, so come inside and I'll show you what we could learn from these two little houses. I'm going to start by showing you around, to get a sense of the layout, and then we can get into the details, including the costs to create this property. I got the drawings from Hélder, who was the architect for the project. Both he and Nuno were very generous and took the time to explain everything to me. Check these out. The property is in 3 parts. Nuno told me they created the project as 2 separate holiday homes, but eventually decided that renting them simultaneously made more sense. Having stayed here for a few days, I think these two are meant to be together. I'm on my own, but I can see this working for an extended family or parents with teenagers, and I'm going to come back to that idea later. Between the two houses is this small detached structure. They call it the reception, but it's a utility room, storage area, and it houses the water heating and air conditioning systems. The site boundary is formed using these wonderfully robust stone walls. Some of these are original and others were built when the houses were constructed, but they match perfectly. I love these bespoke gates. They are very heavy steel and modern in appearance, but allowing them to rust actually matches the old stone walls. That aesthetic of new and old working together in harmony is evident throughout this project. Taken together, we have a compound that was designed as a holiday let but could actually function as an extended family home. Both Casa do Lar and Casa do Lagar each have 2 bedrooms. Casa do Lagar is the smaller home, but its hidden feature is this bifurcated staircase. You don't see these very often, and I love how generous this is. They could have crammed in more living area, but instead they created a tall, bright circulation space. In effect, each bedroom has its own access stairs, but they share a Jack and Jill bathroom. The bedrooms are symmetrical, and they each have these big, bright corner windows with modern shutters held in place with really strong magnets. In fact, shutters and bespoke internal joinery are a feature of the entire project. I do a lot of renovation work to older homes in Edinburgh, and I've rebuilt old shutters, but I've never designed a new window with modern shutters, and I think I might steal this idea for future projects. These windows are designed in a way that used to be common in Europe hundreds of years ago. They separate the daylight from the ventilation. Most modern windows open and close and we don't give them a second thought. But in the late Middle Ages, glass was rare and expensive across Europe. It wasn't possible to make large sheets of the stuff. Glass was fragile, and so windows were designed to be static. They didn't open because that put too much pressure on the frame and it might break the glass. So to get fresh air, a second opening was created using timber panels. Just a small door separate from the glass that could be opened to ventilate the room. I've seen windows like that in buildings from the 14 to 1600s across Europe. I don't know if Nuno and Hélder had this in mind when they created the design, but it's an interesting feature in a modern home. However, the most striking thing about Casa do Lagar is the external cladding on the upper story. When I first saw pictures of the house, I wondered if it was concrete or maybe bitumen shingles, but it turns out this is cork. That's right, the same stuff that's used to bottle up your Pinot Noir could also be used to keep your house warm and dry. Who knew? Portugal is the world's leader in producing cork, and in case you don't know, it's a natural material from the bark of a tree that grows natively in these hills. It is flexible, impermeable, and it resists fire and rot. I've seen it used as an internal wall lining and underlay in UK, but I had no idea it could be used as the cladding on the outside of a building. Apparently this isn't unusual in Portugal, and it's something I think I will investigate for use in the UK. The kitchen units, internal doors and storage units in both homes are bespoke and made from plywood sheets. I love this. It goes to show what is possible when a creative designer and a skilled builder work together with basic materials to make something unique. These fabric door handles are different. I'm sure I've seen something like this on a Lotus Elise, but never in a building. But I like how the kitchen units can be covered over by these bifold panels. Some of my clients spend a lot of money on kitchen units. In many projects, they can be the single most expensive item in the building. I sometimes get the feeling the cost of kitchen units is excessive, but I understand why people in the UK do it. Because we spend so much time in the kitchen, it's important the units look good. These units are basic, but functional. However, if you don't want to look at them, they can be hidden behind bespoke panels, out of sight, out of mind. It's a different philosophy. It saves money on the kitchen units, but it preserves the high quality look and feel of the project, and both houses adopt this approach. Casa next door also has 2 bedrooms, but it has a larger living area and a much more dramatic interior. The front part of the house is a new addition, but just look at this swooping spiral staircase. I love how the stair contrasts with the original stone wall of the old house, and how the connection doesn't ram the two together, they barely touch. This was designed sensitively and it just works. The ground floor has the front room, which is bright and open, but through this massive stone portal is the kitchen and dining space. In the UK, when people think of Portugal, they usually imagine blue skies, sunshine, warm beaches and cool modern architecture. Now, maybe this is me trying to make the most of a bad situation. I chose to travel here in February and the weather is less than ideal. But this shows us that the Portuguese designed their homes for all seasons. Each house has an air conditioning system that can produce warm air, and they also have wood fires. How many holidaymakers can say they went to Portugal and lit a stove to keep warm? It got down to 8 degrees last night, but I was cozy in here. This feels almost primal, like I'm in a cave. I don't mean that in a negative way. This is a warm, intimate space, and I love how it preserves the history of the building, and how this small, dark room contrasts with the tall, bright room at the front. Exposing stone like this would not be possible in a new house in the UK. Our building regulations limit thermal bridging. Any element that connects to the outside must be insulated. In our colder climate, thermal bridging will suck the heat out of the house, and the cold element will lead to condensation forming inside. I understand why we have to cover everything with insulation in the UK, but I wish we could do things like this, even in small amounts. This aesthetic is a wonderful antidote to the crisp, smooth industrial finish so many of our modern homes now have. Showing off the old stone elements in both of these houses gives the homes a connection to their history that modern construction methods cannot replicate. Maybe I'm being overly sentimental. I grew up in the west of Ireland where lots of older houses had a more honest, robust appearance, and I now live in a farming community in Fife, an area with lots of old agricultural buildings. Seeing how the Portuguese approach development in rural areas has been inspirational, but we have to be careful about copying ideas from other places. Back in architecture school, I learned a valuable lesson. No matter where you go in the world, there is a preferred method of construction. Local builders, architects, engineers, and the industry supply chain will do things in a certain way. If you design a building that varies from this, using novel methods or unfamiliar materials, that's when things go wrong. Mistakes, delays, and cost increases are more likely, and that assumes you can find a builder willing to work for you in the first place. Importing foreign methods and materials poses a big risk, but importing ideas from other countries can work, provided the architect designs those ideas using local methods and materials. These buildings have been designed to blend modern and historic aesthetics. They are rooted in their context. Rather than looking like something that was dropped onto the site from a helicopter, the homes are stitched into an existing settlement as a collection of small structures rather than one big box on a green field. And I think that's why it works. But there is a bigger idea here, one I think Nuno and Hélder had not considered. In the UK, we are facing a housing crisis and a demographic crisis. Homes are becoming more expensive and people are living longer. Over the past few years, I've spoken to hundreds of homeowners and buyers from across the UK during my online consultations, and I keep seeing middle-aged people who are planning multi-generational homes. We don't call it that, but it's what they are. Homes where the elderly grandparents are living with their adult children because the cost of care is prohibitively expensive. homes where people in their 20s and 30s are living with their parents because the cost of buying a starter home is beyond them. Whether it's converting garages into granny flats, attics into apartments, or ground floor living spaces into bedrooms for older people, this kind of thinking is becoming more commonplace. This little compound in Portugal offers an intriguing way of solving this problem. Our idea of a home revolves around the nuclear family all living under one roof. The multi-generational home might be better solved by creating a collection of detached homes that share gardens and utility rooms but maintain a degree of independence. This way of living is going to come to the UK one way or another. I suspect there are people watching for whom this is already the reality. And about now you are probably wondering what this all cost. Nuno, the owner, told me when they built the project in 2014, the original construction budget was €220,000. Hélder, the architect, told me that to build this house in 2026, it will cost approximately €560,000. That's £480,000 sterling. Nuno works as a property developer with nearby projects under construction, and he agreed with this figure. Just like in the UK, construction costs in Portugal have inflated massively since COVID. All three structures combined equal 170 square metres of gross internal floor area. So in today's money, Hélder's estimate works out at just over £2,800 per square metre. Now, for context, if you employ a contractor in the UK to build you a one-off house, the going rate is about £2,100 per square metre. However, that assumes the design is simple, just 4 walls and a roof, built using conventional methods and materials on a flat, easily accessible site, nothing fancy. This project is much more complex. It involves 3 different structures: old stone walls, bespoke windows, multiple external finishes, a feature stairs, large areas of glazing, and landscaping. The cost of the pool wasn't included in the original budget. That was added recently. But even excluding the pool, I don't think it would be possible to create the project for £480,000 in the UK in 2026. You also have to factor in the site is located in a remote location. Nuno had to persuade his builder to rent a house and live nearby during construction. They took 6 months to finish the project, which is a reasonable timescale by UK standards. I've met clients through my online consultation service looking to buy sites in rural parts of the UK, and there seems to be a widespread idea that construction costs will be significantly cheaper outside big cities, but that has not been my experience. Builders merchants in the UK don't sell materials at a discount just because the site is remote. Steel, timber, concrete and insulation all cost the same no matter where you are. In fact, if you build a house in a remote location, the cost of transporting materials can drive up the price significantly. Just like Nuno discovered on this project, finding a builder in a remote area can be challenging, sometimes impossible. There may only be one plumber or electrician in the locality, and as long as they are kept busy, the law of supply and demand means they can charge whatever they want. Building a project like this in the UK would almost certainly cost much more than £2,800 per square metre. Nuno believes he got excellent value for money on this project, and he is doubtful it would be feasible to build it at today's prices. If you are thinking about altering, extending, building or buying a home anywhere in the UK, you can book an online consultation with me on the Real Life Architecture website. There's a link in the description. One of the main stumbling blocks to creating a one-off house in the UK is our planning system. On top of that, our building regulations set requirements for minimum space standards, insulation, glazing and heating that make it impossible to build small, cheap homes. Now, I don't have a problem with our regulations. I deal with a lot of old buildings, and it's clear to me that without minimum standards, property developers would go back to tiny kitchens, inaccessible bathrooms and not enough insulation. But regulations like this come at a price. So I was surprised to learn the Portuguese system is broadly similar to the UK. They have a 2-stage process. It starts with the local city hall reviewing the basic outline of the project to make sure the proposed building function is compatible with the area and the size of the structure conforms to published guidance. This is similar to our planning system, and even here the neighbours have the right to object. Nuno tells me the current system is being reformed and they expect to greatly simplify how this type of work gets approved in the future. Once that step has been granted, the next stage requires an engineer to certify the structure. They also appear to have an energy performance assessment for the design to make the house efficient. At the end of construction, the certifying engineer or architect has to sign a form declaring the project has been built to the approved drawings. In Portugal, buildings above a certain size are required to have an architect involved. Nuno believes these days around 90% of homes here are designed by an architect. This is something the UK government are rumoured to be looking into, but it might be years away from implementation. These steps broadly mirror how it's done at home, although with more input from professionals in Portugal than is usually required in the UK. I think this is one of the most interesting homes I have ever stayed in. It manages to respect the history and architectural traditions of the area while also being unmistakably modern, and that is not an easy thing to achieve anywhere. I love the fact Nuno and Hélder created something that inadvertently tests an idea I have been wondering about for some time. This might have been created as a holiday let, but I think the idea of a compound as a home for an extended family, rather than one building for a nuclear family, is something we need to explore in the UK. These are two small houses with big ideas, beautifully designed and skillfully built. As an architect, I could not ask for more. If you want to book a stay here yourself, the property is available on Airbnb and I've put a link in the description. This video is one of a 3-part series I've made about new home design in Europe. There's a link to the series up here. Thank you for watching, and remember, if you need advice about altering, extending, buying or building a home anywhere in the UK, you can book an online consultation with me. There's a link in the description.